This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
Hey there, and welcome to the Cinnamon Effect podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Hand, and I'm thrilled to have you with me on this vibrant journey of discovery and growth. This podcast is your go-to space for embracing intention, where you'll find clarity on your unique path, deepen those meaningful connections, and unleash your creativity like never before. We'll explore how to build unshakable confidence and celebrate the beauty of gratitude, all while savoring the calm that consistency brings to our lives. Thank you for being with me. Let's sprinkle a little cinnamon into your day and make life sweeter, healthier, and more fulfilling. Welcome back. I'm Kimberly Hand, and I'm here with Harmony Brown today. I have to tell you, I'm super pumped to talk to Harmony because Harmony is so many things. Harmony is an acupuncture physician, a functional medicine practitioner. She is studied in China. She blends the Eastern and Western wellness. She's a breathwork facilitator, a sound healer. She has a published meditation on Insight Timer. And she's been in private practice for over 20 years with her business, Reclaim Wellness. Harmony Brown, welcome to the Cinnamon Effect.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm super happy to be here. This is exciting.
Yeah, you have quite the roster of certifications and all the things that you do. And so I love that you have this very blended background of what makes you a very well-rounded practitioner.
Yeah, I think it's just fun to bring things back to my patients, and get them to be introduced to new things. I never think of anything as like a monotherapy. So I never think of like the one thing that will get you better. I think of it as just like this mix of, goodies of health tricks, right? Yeah. And so when I start to enjoy something, I tend to go down the rabbit hole. I love to learn. So if I'm all in on one thing, I usually will find myself signing up to be certified and all of that. But really, some of it is for me, but oftentimes it's really exciting to bring that to my patients. Mm-hmm. The one thing that I get to do is when they come into the practice, I get to do for them, right? Like I'm either going over labs or I'm facilitating acupuncture, but I think there's power in them having tools for the things that they can do on their own. Mm-hmm. And so that's why, sharing a lot of those things. And then it also just keeps it fun, right? Like I work, all these hours and then on the weekend I'll do like a mix of like a sound bath with meditation and acupuncture, and like my patients love it. So it's just fun. It keeps it fresh.
Yeah, I feel like you're a unicorn in that there's not a lot of people that do all of those modalities together, which is really special. And I want to talk about the blending of the Eastern and Western. So you studied in China, you're an acupuncture physician, but then you've got kind of this Western, functional medicine practitioner type vibe. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, I got my master's in traditional Chinese medicine here, obviously in the States. When I was waiting for my doors to open, I was doing a build out. I was waiting for my boards, to the grade has to come back, right? So you're waiting and waiting. And so I wanted to just see how it was done in China. I'm very curious by nature. Mm-hmm. And if I'm doing Chinese medicine, I wanted to kind of know what that looked like in China. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, it looks very different.
Oh, really?
Very different. Obviously there's acupuncture in the hospitals, but even just in the way that they were doing herbals, I remember them, there was a floor for herbal medicine, and there was like these women that were like stirring these pots, and they would almost bring these herbs back up in like what looked like a Capri Sun packet. Oh. And so in the oncology ward, instead of them taking maybe a medication for nausea, they would like pop the straw in their, little Capri Sun looking thing that was made specifically for them. That was for anti-nausea. And I was like, that is crazy. And one of the takeaways too is on every floor of the hospital that I was in, it had a kitchen, and the family would come in and cook their food for them. So they were getting like these beautiful foods rather than just like cafeteria, like there was absolutely no red Jell-O in the hospital,
right. Yeah.
So anyways, it was definitely a different experience, but I'm happy to have had that experience. And then coming back, I knew that I wanted to be working with patients, and kind of the mix and the blend of the Eastern and Western is I knew I loved functional medicine. And I had started working at Good Sam, actually. And I was one of the acupuncturists on staff there working with at an integrative cancer space. And you couldn't really talk Chinese medicine. Like no doctor wants to hear you say like liver overacting on spleen, or like, a yin deficiency with heat, these types of things. So it really, I knew that if I was going to be looking at their labs, speaking to the patient, I also needed to be speaking not to their doctor, but having a way of communication. And so that's a lot of that mix is doing what I do, again, Chinese medicine and doing functional medicine, but having a way of communication. And that's a big thing because patients need to go and talk to their doctors. And if it's just so far out there, they usually just poo-poo it. And so I wanted them to be able to have those real conversations too in that setting as well. So they used to say it was an integrative setting. I used to think not necessarily integrated, but they would let me in their space.
Yeah.
They were okay with me being there. You know what I mean? And often because I could talk their language,
Do you generally, with a patient, start with acupuncture? Is it something that you suggest typically somewhere down the protocol? Are most people open to it? Are they coming to you because they're interested in acupuncture? I'm just kind of interested in how that all works for your practice.
Yeah, I'd say like a good 80% of the patients that I'm seeing are doing acupuncture as well. I mean, acupuncture is so good for, I'm biased, but I think it's amazing for everything. My favorite little tidbit is that 5,000 years ago, the Chinese doctor in the village only got paid when the village was well. So like, I always joke, I'm like, how's that for like healthcare reform? You know what I mean? I'm like, let's go back to those days. Like, so there's a huge piece that acupuncture can play in keeping someone well. In our sort of space now, in the States, it's like we have a problem, we have an ailment, we have a symptom, something like that, and then people will come to us. The idea is to then work with them on getting rid of some of those chief complaints, strengthening the system, and then making sure that, now we are using it for prevention rather than for problem solving. Because technically that's how it really is designed, and that's how it really, that's kind of the magic. So I'd say that the majority do come for acupuncture, but my intake is about an hour and a half long. I ask them a gazillion questions. And from there, everything is tailored. Yeah. Every single thing is tailored in our practice. I just meet them where they're at. I do ask them, what are you open to? And if they're like, no way, not one acupuncture needle is coming into this body, I say, okay. It always does.
It always does.
It
It makes it way
but
there.
I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. But it always does.
What do you say are some of the the cornerstones of what acupuncture is? How would you explain it? Or what would you tell somebody who didn't really know a lot about acupuncture, how they could be using it to further their wellness? Yeah.
So, I kind of break it down and oversimplify it, right? So I say it's always doing three things. So the first thing is it's moving everything in the body in the rate in which it's designed. So blood flow, lymphatics, energetics. When things are stuck physically or emotionally in the body, we don't feel good. So one is just smooth flow of chi, energy. Second is going to be that it has the opportunity to actually dial down inflammation and pain signaling. So, I say, have you ever used like Tylenol or Aleve or anything like that to get things better? And they're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh, did it work? And if they say, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, okay. So then I'm like, okay, this is great. That's more, it's treating inflammation, treating pain, and we can do that same thing. Thirdly is, this is where it gets a little bit more woo, but we ask a million questions and we kind of throw things up on a whiteboard because every single organ system has a laundry list of things that it's designed to do. And so when you're in that room with that patient for an hour and a half, you get these symptoms or complaints or annoyances. And sometimes you're just picking it up on the nuances of the conversation. And you're throwing things up on a whiteboard and kind of, well, this is my visualization. And I'm looking and I'm categorizing of like which organ systems those are hitting. And then that's really where you come in and you can either strengthen a certain organ that's taken a hit, or you can sedate an organ that's like way on overdrive. But the idea is you're just trying to recreate some balance back to the body. And that's why, you know, we have 1,000 points to use on the body, but clearly not everybody's getting all 1,000. So you want to make sure that you have a good intake and you have a good understanding of what those underlying conditions are so that you can be pretty tailored in your approach. And that's usually that's how I usually describe acupuncture. The other thing I will say is that calming the central nervous system. I mean, just by laying on the table in my office, you know, you're laying on a table. Sometimes the table is heated if that's what you want. We've got heat over your toes. We have essential oil under your nose. There's nice music. And so just by default, that's already like you're already de-stressing. But it has the opportunity to kind of recalibrate that nervous system and just put the body at a place of ease. And once that body's at a place of ease, you have an opportunity to create healing. So
I love
Sounds
acupuncture.
yummy.
It's I'm like, I could be laying on that table right now with the red light and the
yes. It's my favorite place to be too. One of them.
Are there's some like kind of, not, I don't want to say rules, but acupuncturists promote more healing foods, maybe not as many raw foods. Are there certain like little nuances that you can talk about?
Yeah. So for most of my patients, they're like, what should I not do, you know, after acupuncture? So the first thing, obviously, I say drink water. I'm going to say that to everybody to drink more water, but definitely because we're moving things around. And one of my mentors a long time ago, he used to say the solution to pollution is dilution.
Oh,
Right. So like if we're moving things around, we need to dilute it down so that it turns into that water soluble so we can get it gone. And that's for I use that analogy a lot, not just with acupuncture, but water, definitely after your appointment. I don't want people to do anything really crazy as far as like a workout or something like that. It's a very gentle treatment. And the needles still are working, you know, up to 10 hours after you leave. And that's what people don't realize is that like, you don't jump off the table and then assess, am I better? You know, we wait for the body to take note on what did we ask for it to change. And so I'll say, you know, let's assess, you know, maybe in the evening or most likely that next day, but really it's an accumulative process. We usually are doing an accumulation of treatments or, you know, we do a little bit more in the beginning and then we can kind of taper off. The idea is to not have to see you all the time because you are doing better and better. Like I do believe in like graduation of care and then just moving into maintenance and prevention. But then I'd say as far as like rules for acupuncturists, I mean, we definitely are lovers of heat. You know, the chiropractors and the PTs and then the acupuncturists, like we're all like, you know, this is like our great battle. Like they're like ice, ice, ice. And the acupuncturists are all like heat, everything. Just because we want like everything to be warmed and nourished and moving. You know, ice is so constricting. And if you already have like discomfort or blockage, you know, kind of just like constricts. So obviously if somebody has a 10 out of 10 pain and they just did it, it's acute, you know, your wrist is swelling, we would use ice. But for often, you know, we are usually saying heat more. And then same thing with oftentimes, you know, the acupuncturist rule is going to be like nothing that's like an ice drink or ice cold. You know, we want to nourish the system. And so, you know, rather than stressing the body out, trying to bring it back up to 98.5 degrees, just have it go in at more of like that room temperature space. So sometimes we do have to have those conversations about ice cold and, you know, cold smoothies and then raw food just in general. I mean, I treat so much in the space of digestive disorders that it's a lot of work to break down raw food. And if you're already exhausted and your digestive fire is already pretty burnt out, to put in like a piece of broccoli that's raw and then ask your body to break that down, that's a large job. Most of us are already a little bit deficient when it comes to digestive capabilities and then also digestive enzymes. So raw food is also, we definitely have those conversations too.
Yeah. It's interesting. I never really thought about it, but you're so right. A piece of raw broccoli, like just try and eat one without like ranch dressing on it.
Right.
And try and like chew that up. And it does feel kind of aggressive.
Yeah, like you could take a hammer to a piece of raw broccoli and it probably isn't just it's barely going to split in half. You know what I mean? So that's asking a lot from a system that's already taxed. So we like to, just give your body a warm hug, like, gently steamed and just allow it to kind of just do what it does. And so raw, especially for some of my patients, like again, when I was working in the cancer space, energetically, there's so many things that are depressed, right? And if we, one of their chief complaints is they're just so tired. So it's a lot of energy to break down food in the body. So I'm like, okay, if we only have so much energy in a day, let's not use like 30% of it just towards digestion. So again, it's more of that like bone broth and soups and stews and things like that. And they do end up feeling like that makes a difference. So
yeah.
Oh,
I love the acupuncture. So moving into the functional medicine space, we want to cover hormones and labs and get into all this good stuff. Thyroid health. When do we supplement? When do you we, not me.
When are we doing this practice together?
What are we doing, Harmony? Yeah. When do you supplement versus, use certain medications? So where do you want to start?
Yeah, that's a deep dive.
We got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I run labs on the majority of my patients, full thyroid panels with antibodies, all of the things. And I think we always start with, nutrition, lifestyle, sleep hygiene, all of the things. So, because those are all things that usually are having to be addressed in my office anyways. So we start there first. We start with nutrition, moving our body. Then we sometimes are moving into the space of using some supplements, and then we retest, and if we're going along the way and we're seeing progress, then I think that that's fantastic. And if we feel like we're not seeing the progress, then maybe we do lean into more of medication. But, I think from like start to medication, there's a lot of room in the middle, and we just make sure that we cover those bases. And if it's necessary, then it's necessary. I don't think that's a loss. I know sometimes people are like, I don't want to go on any medications ever in my whole entire life. And I think of sometimes in the medication space for the thyroid, people often do feel like that. And it's like, if we had a vitamin D deficiency, we all take vitamin D and like nobody has a problem, right? It's low, we take it. So if there's some thyroid hormones that are low and our body is asking diligently to address this, and if we just weren't making those strides, then of course I would say, yeah, we can opt for the medication. But again, along the way, there's a lot of things that we can do. And oftentimes people just don't think about some of the small ticket items, which is the sleep hygiene, the stress management, making sure your immune system is good, that you have, space in your day where you're just not always on overdrive, because usually the body is on overdrive a lot for most people. And it's just like pulling it back, and just supporting the system, and then actually watching it work efficiently. So there's always a time and a place for medication. I'm never, an anti anything. I joke with my patients. I'm like, there is a time, to go to the doctor. If a shark eats my arm, like I'm not coming to my acupuncturist, you know what I mean? Like sew that puppy back on. So there's always a time and a place. So I'm not anti anything. I'm just, let's try all the things first as natural as we can. And then let's see how that unfolds. But yeah, we test along the way to make sure that we're making progress.
I feel like a lot of women that I know, myself included, have thyroid issues. I've actually seen 2 people on social media this week that were diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So just find it, very interesting. There's a lot of Hashimoto's. When it comes to thyroid and females, where do you start? What are some of the labs you're looking at? Are there certain thresholds that need to, that the numbers need to be at? Or maybe just kind of talk people through that. I think a lot of people don't even realize they have thyroid issues, but they probably do.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah. So it's crazy, but like 12% of the population, I believe, is what the number was the other day that I had read, is that's having thyroid issues. So this little gland, it's so susceptible to toxins. And I think that's why it's just kind of riding the struggle bus, you know, we are inundated with toxins and not only that, but again, just sometimes it's even the uneasiness like in our body that's creating some of those stress responses, stress itself, again, all the things that we've covered, you know, the nutrition, all the aspects. But when patients are coming in, there's a lot of different symptoms that look like a lot of different things. So the problem with thyroid is it could be very vague, right? Like I'm tired, you know, I have sugar cravings and, you know, my skin is dry or my hair feels a little bit different these days, or, you know, I'm starting to gain a little bit more weight and it's, you know, they're kind of going through, and a lot of times like some of the doctors will just think they're whining, you know, because it's nothing crazy big, but it's just a lot of little things. And, you know, and then sometimes women are just coming in, they're like, maybe I'm just getting older. And I'm like, no. And meanwhile, I'm like, you're 36. Okay. You like, no, you are not. That's not the answer yet, you know? So when they're coming in, I would say like our full workup. I'm doing like a comprehensive metabolic panel, a complete blood count. You know, those are pretty your standards. I want to know what their liver enzymes look like. I want to know what the cholesterol looks like. I want to know what their iron and ferritin look like, because as women menstruating, this can be an area where there's a lot of fatigue that comes up, also with digestive issues. We can see some issues with iron. I'm definitely doing a full thyroid panel. That's one of the pictures that we see is like people will come in and they're like, no, my doctor ran my thyroid and it's fine. And so it's like one marker, like it's like the TSH and that's it. Maybe you get like a TSH with T4. And they're like, no, it's fine. And again, fine, depending. It could be the lab range is from like 0.5 to let's say 4.5. If you're on either side of those spectrums, either really, really low or really, really high, you're probably not going to feel well, you know? But again, you're in normal ranges. So here you have this patient doesn't feel well at all. So we definitely tighten up those ranges. You know, I want it very like close in the middle. Sometimes like that 0.85 to maybe like 1.85, let's say like we want it tight. We want it efficient. It's doing so much in the body. We want it to run well. It's literally like, I think of it as, it's like the gas pedal in the car. It's your temperature gauge, right? It makes you poop, not poop. Makes you happy, not happy. Makes you sleep, not sleep. Hot, cold. Like it's everything. And so we want to make sure that it's running efficiently. And if we only just have one or two numbers, it doesn't really give us the full picture. Unfortunately, in this world, we have a lot more coming up with autoimmune conditions. And so this is what we'll see too, is that the thyroid panel maybe looks fine, but then the antibodies weren't ever run. And that's quite a bit different because it's not necessarily that the thyroid isn't working. It's more that the immune system is kind of pissed off at the gland. And so now it's making antibodies towards that tissue. So those are different things. And oftentimes I have to just think that the reason why the doctors tend to not run the thyroid antibodies is because they don't have anything in their toolbox for it. You know, that's nutrition and lifestyle. And, you know, that's the deep dive into doing all the things that, you know, unfortunately they don't have time for. But yeah, there isn't a medication to just give you for your thyroid antibodies. So I think a lot of times it's just like, okay, don't run that. These look fine. You're good. So again, that's definitely noted on the panel. And then, you know, as far as other things that we're running, vitamin D, homocysteine, we're running inflammatory markers, your folate, your magnesium, your B12 or methylmalonic acid. Fasting insulin is huge. I tell my patients, you know, they're like, how is that different than A1C and glucose? And I'm like, well, this kind of is telling us the pre diabetes, right? Like what are you tracking for? Because oftentimes the conversation happens at pre-diabetes, when really, why wouldn't we intervene if you were already tracking towards pre-diabetes, right? So yeah, we get a full panel, and from there we just kind of jump in and figure out what needs to be optimized or supported and kind of go from there.
When do you recommend like a cleanse, like for detoxification? Like where do you, because I feel like a lot of people are like, well, I just need to do a cleanse.
Yeah.
You know, like is that really the answer? Is that where you start with people? Talk me through that.
Yeah.
Because I always hear that. I'm like, the guy that like, is drinking beer on his couch and, and he's like, I think I just need to do a juice cleanse.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
it's possible,
not.
right?
Yeah. So cleanse or detox, those words are very wildly loose out there, right? It could look like so many different things. So as far as a detox, if people are coming in, first off, I do detoxes in the office, of course. But sometimes, again, this is like knowing your patient and meeting them where they're at. Sometimes my patients first need a detox that looks more like cutting down like the news, like turning off your phone, like a media detox. And sometimes we have to start there. Like those are some of those triggering factors that are coming in. So we talk about relationships and things like that, and where we can cleanse things that are really causing disruption or disturbances. And sometimes it's not always just about like the supplements, the diet and things like that. Then of course, like leaning into that cleanse. Yes, of course, there are using, diet approaches like no gluten, no dairy, no sugar, no soy, no alcohol, all of the things, no seed oils. And again, always a time and a place. Not saying I don't do those things because I do, but knowing where your patient is at. If I have a patient who, let's say I run a stool test and everything is coming back a disaster and their labs are indicating that their immune system is just super high anxiety, right? Like their immune system is overreacting to everything and their inflammatory markers are elevated. If I just go in and just put more stress on the system, that might not be what that person needs. If I start to do a cleanse with somebody who doesn't poop every day, right? If I have somebody who comes in and they're like, crazy thing, I don't have any digestive issues, but I only poop every 7th day. Whew, yeah, right? Can't even imagine, but it happens. And I can't do a detox with them at that exact moment. I need them to poop first so that when we do start to get some of these things to clear, we know they're clearing. So I think there's always a time and a place. And again, for a detox, I think also instead of coming at my patients and saying, we are going to eliminate this, and this, I want to let them know that we're going to come at this from a space of think of it as like a warm hug of nutrients. So I tell them that I'm going to, use a few products that are going to have a lot of nutrients in it. We're going to marinate your system in all these different nutrients that you might not have been getting so that we can create efficiency, like give your body the cofactors it needs so that it can just work efficiently. I promise everybody's body knows how to detox. Like sometimes it's just not given the right signals or the right things, right? And so if we can bring in more nutrients first and then kind of set them up, then we can get to that space where we can start to take out some of those insults and really move them into that cleanse. So it's a heavy loaded question. If you said, do you do cleanses in your office? I would say yes. But again, it's so nuanced. And then there are those patients who they're like, I'm doing a parasite cleanse. I got it over the counter and I'm pooping 12 times a day. So it's totally working. And I'm like, oh, actually, and then we're like, let's not do that anymore. There's ways that we can do those things. And there's phases in order to do that. So we're not stressing out the body. So that we really are coming out ahead at the end rather than just depleted,
So something like that would be depleting. It would be too much, pooping 12 times a day in the parasite cleanse.
Yeah, that they got from like GNC. I'm usually like, let's not do that. I love the, I love the go get 'em spirit, but it's like, and then I'm like, well, what told you had parasites? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I just read it in an article that I probably do. So I'm like, all right, let's just back up.
Yeah.
Let's just back up and just fortify the system. And, we can test for those things. And then if we should go down that avenue, then we can do that together.
How many times a day should people be pooping?
I mean, let's just let's just say once.
Okay. So once, if you're pooping once, you're probably doing okay.
Yeah, once, twice. That would be great. I think it comes down to like, some people are like, I don't understand. I poop 3 times a day. Are you telling me there's something wrong? No, not at all. It's the accompanying factors, right? If there's discomfort, if there's urgency, right? If it's like, you got to eat, you got to poop. Like Though, those are some of the other questions. But for some people, they're going once, 2 times a day. That's fantastic. But we do want to make sure that it's an easy process, and that it is happening daily. Yeah.
Okay. Could there still be gut issues if someone is pooping pretty regularly and feeling like they don't have any issues with that?
100%.
You can still have some issues going on.
Yeah, that's always.
But if you're pooping once in 7 days, you definitely got something going on.
We gotta have a conversation. So it's funny. There's a functional doctor who has this quote that I saw, and he says, "The gut is not like Vegas. What happens in the gut does not have to stay in the gut." And so it's true. We have these inflammatory signaling, lots of inflammatory signaling that happens from the GI, lots of communication up to the brain, up to the joints, to the hormones, all the things. And so I do assess lots of patients, and they're like, "Yeah, no, my GI is fine." Actually, that was this morning. My first patient this morning, it was like, "No, my gut's fine, totally easy breezy." And yet she has really terrible eczema, psoriasis, all of these things. 75% of your immune system is coming from your GI, right? So just because your GI seems to be great does not mean that it's not harboring, overgrown microbes, or there's an imbalance with the good guys. So it's definitely something that we address often. Symptoms or no symptoms.
Is it pretty much like if you have skin issues, you have something wrong with your gut? Would you say it's always reflected on the skin?
I mean, I know you're not ever supposed to use the word always.
Well,
but
yeah.
I'm, usually if I've got somebody who's coming in with skin anything, I'm definitely looking at the gut, 100% hands down. Yeah. I mean, anything going on internally in the body is going to be reflective to the skin. So yeah, I look at the gut almost always.
Is it kind of aggravating for you to see, just, I guess maybe just floating out there, like you said, the parasite cleanse from GNC, there's a lot of things going on and people recommending, I don't know, maybe the influencer who's recommending, this certain cleanse or that cleanse. Should people just not pay attention to that? Get your blood drawn, get a stool test, really see what's going on before doing anything like that?
I mean, I don't get, like you had said, do I get bothered or annoyed by those things happening? I think information is great. 20 years ago, if I said, "We're going to put you on a parasite cleanse," I was a quack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love that things are being brought to light. I think that things that need to be investigated, or we need to ask more questions. And obviously, I do think it's important to work with somebody who can help you navigate that. I definitely have had patients who, perfect example, right? I have people who come in, they bring me all their supplements, and I won't name names, on the things that come up on our Instagram feeds, but and I see all the things that they line up. And I'm and they're all the hot ticket, supplement items on Instagram at that time. And again, some of them are not bad, right? These could be a glutamine, a colostrum, a creatine, all these different things that are coming up, and they're good for you, right? So they're all laid out, and I'm okay, I understand. I see these things. These are great. However, it comes down to a time. Timing is everything. So when somebody comes in and they're I'm taking this, I'm okay, that's fantastic. But that would be phase 4. When they're saying, "This is for gut health. I have leaky gut. This is to heal and seal my leaky gut." True. Those products are to do that. However, if I run a stool test and let's say they've got a ton of H. pylori and all of a sudden their microbes are just going crazy. We've got strep and staph and Morganella and Klebsiella and Pseudomonas and all these different things. We don't want, or we can't really heal and seal that gut up when we have those microorganisms in there up to no good, right? So timing is everything. So they're not wrong. And I love them that they're trying and they're trying to be proactive in their health, but it does come down to sometimes a time and a place, or where are we at in that cycle? So we're okay, that's great, but we have to do these steps first. So let's first take out those things that are insulting the system. And then we'll come back to these products and then we can reintroduce those back in and kind of heal it up.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that.
So timing is everything.
Yeah, timing is everything. You call yourself a joy transformationalist. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you said that because you mentioned a little bit the warm hug, the sparking joy. I love that you do address that with your patients. Maybe it is a media detox or stop watching the news, right? So do you want to talk about that aspect of what you do a little bit more?
Yeah. So, I do this 1.5 hour intake, right? I ask all these questions. How do you sleep? How do you poop? How do you think? What are your relationships like? I'm asking all the things that are like, quote unquote, wrong, right? What's going on in the body and like explain those things to me. And then usually towards the end, I ask their 3 health goals. I want to make sure that I can meet their expectations, And so tell me what you would like from my practice and what you would like me to help you address. And then lastly, I ask them, what do you do for you? What fills your bucket? What creates joy in your life? Like, what are the things that really make you happy or just like fill you back up after a long day? Waterworks. That is always the place that people will cry. And I don't mean to make anybody cry, but that's usually where the tissues come out. And it's so unfortunate that we can always just say all the bad things, list out all the negatives, and then we get to the one place where it's like, they just are like, I don't know. I don't have the time. I'm not sure. And usually the 2 things that will come up is exercise, which is great. That is fantastic. I want everybody to be moving their body. But again, if we're really, really high stress, going all the time, and then their outlet to fill their bucket is like a major HIIT workout, your body doesn't know the difference from running from a bear if it's a HIIT workout or if it's just like crazy, day at work. So I'm like, no, but like, what do you do to like bring it down? And sometimes they're like, my nails. And I'm like, does that bring you joy? Do you really fill your vessel at the nail salon? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, so we have to work on this. So I tell them all the time, like, my job is to make sure that, yes, we are addressing your health, but I'd love to address your joy, because if you're joyful in life, I feel like your health follows. And like, life is short. And like, we should just be soaking up every ounce of joy that we can. And I want to make sure that I help people do that. So yes, health is a factor, and sometimes it's just asking questions like, yes, what's joyful, but also like what aligns with you, or like, do you feel like you're purpose driven? Because as humans, we are purpose driven individuals. And so like knowing sometimes especially for women when they're coming in, like, where are they at? Like, are they empty nesters? Are they new moms and things like this? And like, where are you aligning with your purpose? Because if you're not from an energetic space, like, that's heavy, and that can be sometimes where those blockages are. That can be sometimes where that just like, I'm tired. And it's sometimes it's not that they don't have energy or they can't get energy, but they're just tired of not being on their purpose or feeling great about their days. So
that's so important. And I love that you are concerned with that, with people and wanting to help them, because I think for me, being a woman in my mid-40s, there were a lot of years where my son was young and I was just really focused on him and focused on marriage and my son and did not do anything to fill my cup, right? And like you're saying, go run to the nail salon, do a high impact workout and think that was like filling my cup. But really, I just felt depleted and kind of sad and just like lackluster, I guess. And it draws your energy down, and so but I know a lot of women too, and I've heard this because it is something that I talk about a lot, where they're like, I don't even know what I like to do. I don't even know what it is I would do if I had time.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Where do you?
So we have to explore that.
Yeah.
Really. And so I'm going to back up to like that detox question and how I had said media and things like that. Because the women who are in my practice, and I do have some men, but let's just talk about the women because that's what we are.
The ladies.
In these chairs right now. They're like, the women that I see are like superheroes, right? Like they are getting it done. They're high achievers with like high education. They're running companies and running their family, and they're the best wife, the best mom, the best employee, or the best boss. And so sometimes when they're coming in, one of those detoxes is like getting rid of, and people are going to be mad at me for this, but getting rid of the wearables.
Oh, okay.
I know, right? I mean, I have a ring on too. Like,
okay.
I do love these things.
I don't do any wearables.
Okay. I was like, I use CGMs, right? Like I want continual glucose monitors on people and things like this. But again, these women, they're so good at being great and they're just doing it. So like they wake up in the morning and they look to see if they had a good night's sleep. And if they didn't, they're like, oh, it's going to be a bad day. But I'm like, wait a minute, but did you have a good night's sleep? And they're like, well, I mean, I think so, but my ring said I didn't. And I'm like, okay, hold on a second. You know what I mean? So I love the biohacking world, but I want some of my women to actually back up. We're going to come back to the wearables, you know what I mean? But I'm like, let's just feel our body. Let's go back to the space of like having like body awareness. A lot of times my teenagers, right, when they're like kind of, their bodies are like totally doing new things. I'm like, what did your body say to you when you ate that food? So like as some of my women who don't have the time to check in with these signals. So they're relying on certain things to tell them, but I don't want to outsource, our awareness. I want us to get back into the awareness of like what feels good in my body, not because my aura said I slept great after doing that or my HRV was good and all of those things. Like I just want to innately know what makes me feel good. And so we like tap into that space. And that's where, like you had said, I do all these things. I'm doing breath work and, sound baths and all of that. I'm like, just come. Yeah. Just try it out. See what happens. And I have them explore doing new things because oftentimes with those new things comes some open-hearted, epiphanies or just, some universal downloads. That's why I do like using some of those things. Again, it's quiet time. The space is just safe and delicious and warm and cozy. And they're trying something new and they're open and it's amazing what comes through. And if they're like, I don't know, I thought about maybe doing this. I'm like, okay, let's just see what that looks like. Yeah. But I have some other people in my office, a talk therapist. I've got a Reiki practitioner. Somebody, she also was doing like astrology readings and things like this. So like we have all these things like the science to the woo to all the things. And I usually am really good at just like knowing the patient and knowing if they went to this person, they could unlock that piece. So that's how we sort of drive into that. Yeah.
It sounds so juicy. Like I love the blending of the science and the woo, just like what you said.
Yeah.
That's kind of the perfect storm of like, and going back to the wearables, what you were saying about that. So true. Like we're not listening to our bodies anymore. We're waiting for an app or something to tell us. Yeah, we're tracking everything. Yeah. And we don't even know how we feel anymore. That's kind of why I've been resistant to the wearables. I want to do the Aura ring. That was the one that I'm like, I could dip my toe in that and then just something stops me from doing it. I'm like, I feel like I pretty much know when I don't sleep well and when I do. And, I am committed to sleep more than I ever have. Like I really try to focus on that and I don't know, like up level my sleep game, I guess. But yeah, I just haven't been able to pull the trigger on a wearable.
I mean, again, I feel like there's a time and a place for everything, but just when we're starting out in this process, I mean, again, like we have enough things in our life to shame us, right? Yeah. I don't need my patients waking up, having their ring shame them because their HRV was like in the tank and they're like, I had a great day yesterday. You know what I mean? Or like, some of my women, like I said, they're high achievers, they're go-getters. So they're like, okay, so I did this meditation thing and I'm doing this it's like a 30-day meditation. And I'm like, okay, that sounds amazing. And they're like, I totally suck. I only got 29 days out of the 30. So like, I basically blew it. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, did you not celebrate 29 times? I'm like, you crushed it. You know what I mean? You missed one day. So, I mean, again, sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, and we have a lot of those conversations too.
Yeah. Why are we so hard on ourselves like that? I want to, like you, I want to give women a hug, just like collectively, and be like, you are doing an amazing job.
100%. I feel like that's what we all need. And really so many are. And again, it's like, I knew I was going to come on here and probably say like, don't get the wearable, don't do the CGM. And again, that's like not what I'm saying. I think all of these things can be fantastic, but let's like layer, you know, let's like go in and be like, okay, this month, maybe instead of the cleanse, it's going to be more of like full body awareness and like journal that. Like last night I went to bed an hour earlier than I usually do. And the next day I crushed it or, you know, whatever that looks like. Or even like, instead of like, you know, because I have lots of people who have to-do lists, like what if our goal, and I say this a lot, what if our goal was to actually take one thing off the to-do list? Your homework is to go home and look at your list and take one thing off. Because again, there's a lot of this like toxic productivity, right? Like we just have to do, and you know, and God forbid if we listen to the radio anymore, we have to be like learning all the time. So, right, it's like, just like trying to get all the information. And so it's, I mean, I know this is like personalized medicine, but this is how personalized we tend to get.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You're getting really in there to the person's habits and
these
lifestyle.
Don't cost money.
Yeah.
You know, like I know testing, you know, products and things like that can cost a lot of money. And so, you know, let's just make some adaptations. You know, it's not a no. It's just, let's make some adaptations to our life first. And then let's see where we're at, you know, because it's only going to go up from there. Because then when we do add back into like the cleanse or taking out some of these, you know, foods that we know are insulting, and then we're back onto the wearables, like then we get to really dial it all in and have all the information. But steps and meeting people where they're at, because change is hard. So if I tell somebody to go to bed earlier, there's resistance. If I tell somebody, maybe let's just like not drink on the weekdays, you know, and they're like, whoa. And I'm like, please, you know? So I do ask people to, you know, make those changes. And so, we just come up with a plan.
Yeah. What are like some 5 things that someone should be doing or should not be doing, however you want to phrase it? Like, are there anything that you just see in general and then we just need to cut it out? Maybe geared towards women?
I think we have to take a little bit of a look at the alcohol, because there's a lot of patients that I have that have a pretty sticky relationship with alcohol. You know, obviously like there's the spectrum, but like definitely, you know, really relying on that to be their downtime or what like brings them, you know, back down to feeling calm. And it's crazy. I was just actually, I think it was actually on a podcast the other day, and she had said in the UK that that alcohol is now a class 1 carcinogen, and it's like with radiation, you know what I mean? Which is crazy. So what we do know is that most of us, because we talk about detox, we talk about hormones, we talk about, you know, being under this like, you know, we're having like fatigue and emotional imbalances. Well, in Chinese medicine, the liver has to detox all of these things, but it has to detox your emotions. And so that's like a heavy job. And so when alcohol goes in, the first thing it's going to do, the body says, well, that's poison. And it goes right to the liver. It has to stop all the other things that it's doing, prioritize the alcohol first, and then get it gone. And so let's just take that out, or let's look at that relationship with alcohol. So I know that's not a fan favorite, but also with women, like, you know, we are struggling with hormones, and that's going to increase the cortisol, and that's going to impact the way that we metabolize. So if we're looking to lose a few pounds, alcohol is not the thing. So that's a big one. I usually like to then second say, let's look at like instead of saying the word meditation, I'll say, let's do some like pattern interruptions. If every single day you are just go, 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 and your stress is like a 10 out of 10, we know that you can do that really well. Why don't we learn how to just be quiet for like 5 minutes? And so that's my first goal for every person is, again, 5 minutes a day. I love Insight Timer. There's 1 million people on there. If you don't like one that you listen to, you've got 250,000 next to go to.
And you have one on there.
I have one on there. It's 30 minutes, so that might not be where you want to start.
Okay.
That's like part of the future plan is to just have those on there for my patients to be like, listen, I've got a 2 minute, a 3 minute, a 5 minute, but there's plenty out there. My mentor, David G, he's on there 1 million times over, and he's got some very short ones. And I love what he sounds like because he looks like Santa, but he talks like a surfer, and everybody can just really get behind that. He's just like, oh, comfort is queen, feather your nest. And like, who doesn't love to hear that? So like, that's usually where I tell people to go first is listen to him. And I'm like, listen, just do it 5 days. And they're like, okay, but when? Should I do it in the morning? Should I do it at night? And I'm like, stop it. Just do it. Again, the last thing we need is to shame ourselves because that person decided that the first thing they should do in the morning is their meditation. Well, maybe that person actually needs more sleep and they should actually sleep in and feel how good that feels. So I'm like, just get it done. Let's just have a pattern interruption so that when you are going 1 million miles an hour in a day, there's at least a time in the day where you told your body like, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's part of like that stress resilience when I'm moving people into like learning meditation is like, we go to the gym and we're doing bicep curls, right? So like when we have to exercise that. So we're going to have a really stressful day. And then we're going to have moments in the day where we're at total peace. And then we're going to have a stressful day. And then we're going to have total peace. So we're like doing this like flexing motion. And we get to create that resiliency. So we can have some hard days knowing that we're going to be able to, tell the body we're okay. Again, that whole sympathetic, parasympathetic, go, go, danger, danger. But then we have to do the rest and digest and recovery. And, I tell most of my patients that we're either making stress hormones or we're making sex hormones, but we're not doing both. And most of my patients are coming in because their hormones are off. So I'm like, well, we got to do something here. So I would say the do's and the don'ts is definitely increasing some time of peace. I go back to that space of joy, like what brings you joy. And if there really isn't, they're just like nothing, I just can't think of one thing. Then I'm like, then go for a walk. And a really wonderful way to do like a meditation during a walk is go for a walk, be by yourself, and just look at everything as if it's the first time you've ever seen it. That's it. Also, if we're doing things that are creative, it was a lot easier during COVID because people were like at home and people were like learning how to knit. And I was doing like friendship bracelets on a loom and like, with my daughter when then she wasn't even interested. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I was like in the zone. But when we're doing something that's creative, we're not stressing. Like you don't do both things at the same time. So if we have things or think of what we used to maybe like back in the day, like those creative outlets we used to have, maybe start to bring those back in. I don't know what it is. Did you used to make greeting cards? Did you paint? Like, who knows? But like any moments of creativity take us out of that, flying high sort of stress state. I don't know if I answered the other question or not.
I know, but you gave some really, really good ones.
Okay.
Speaking my language with the no alcohol, I talk about that a lot. I want to move into hormones because that's a big issue for most people, really male or female, right? But we could focus on the women.
Okay.
Woman comes in feeling out of whack. You test the hormones. Are you supplementing? Are you going for bioidenticals? Like, can you talk about that?
Yeah.
It's very layered.
It is layered. And it's like a wide, vast, topic. I just love that like women's health is having a movement right now. Like, thank goodness, and, because we just haven't been doing it right for like the last 20 years. And then here we are and people are interested and curious. And, we obviously have new information. Well, I mean, new to some, but, bioidenticals are a wonderful option for women. It's, again, it doesn't have to be the starting point for women when they're coming in. We run labs. The thing with labs is that I really do believe in order for us to do women's health better, we should really be getting a baseline in our 20s, and then maybe like pre-babies, and then post-babies, and then perimenopause, because that lets us know how you track with your hormones, right? Because we do have reference ranges, but those reference ranges, like, they might not be yours. So if, let's say, you tended to be a little on the higher testosterone side growing up, and even through pregnancies, and then all of a sudden we get to like 42 and it's just tanked, and you're like, I have no libido, I have no motivation, I'm exhausted, and yet you're still in the range, they're going to be like, no, you're fine, you know, and you're not fine, you're struggling. A couple of questions are, you know, what led us to the depletion of those hormones? As we are, you know, taxing the body and really, you know, working hard, being the best at all the things, you know, we're definitely tapping into those adrenals. And that's kind of like the car battery in Chinese medicine. You know, those kidneys are really responsible for a lot of the reproductive organs and how those are going to be performing. And if we're constantly doing everything in a day that's going to be drawing from those tanks, we'll probably be tanked later. So yes, there are herbals and you know, adaptogens and things like this that we can use, but we want to address, like, how did we get here first? And then if we get into the space with supplements, especially too, I like, if my patients are still cycling, yes, then we can use certain herbals to see if we can get things to be a little bit more nourished and on track. And if, let's say now, you know, we're really entering into that space of menopause, I'll say first to go with the most natural approach, which usually is, well, my motto is kind of use the least amount of anything for the most benefit. And so we'll do the least amount of those bioidenticals to see, you know, the maximum results that we're getting, and move from there. So I do have a nurse practitioner in my office. And so if we need to do something of that sort, we can. But yeah, you know, menopause, perimenopause, this is like a new terrain for a lot of women, and they are definitely struggling. And again, you know, if, you know, a lot of it just goes back to stress. Like, if our cortisol is ramped up, like I said, it's stress hormones or sex hormones, but it's not both. So oftentimes I will see women coming in and the cortisol is high, and yet their progesterone is just zero. And progesterone is what makes our skin dewy and makes us sleep super amazing. And it's like our God-given Xanax in the body. So when you take that away and it's really tanked out, you know, ask that girl how she feels, you know? And that's why, you know, they'll be like, I don't understand. I can't stand it when my husband chews. Like, he chews so loud. I just want to punch him in the face. And I'm like, let's run a hormone panel. Why don't we do that today? You know? And then timing, you know, timing of when to run those hormones. But I think it really comes down to just, there isn't a normal. And it's unfortunate because when I see women coming in sort of from a Western space, the young women are coming in and they're like, well, my doctor won't run my hormones because I'm still getting my period. So I still have them. I'm like, okay. And then when they go into menopause, a lot of times the doctors will say, well, I'm not going to run your hormones because you don't have any, you're in menopause. Okay, there's a lot in the middle of what's going on there. And so it's important for us to be running those hormones. And then also, it's also important for us to know what's happening internally with those hormones. Because again, when you said, you know, bioidenticals or we're doing herbals and things like that, one of the functional tests that we use is a Dutch test. So a dried urine, you know, comprehensive hormone test. And it's not just to see for some women if it's high or low, because maybe it's not high or low. Maybe it's actually what they're doing. What's the ratio of those estrogens, or what's the ratio of the progesterone to estrogen? Or how are we downstreaming them in the body? Because sometimes it might not be the black and white of the high, low mark on a Quest lab, but it's more so of like, what are they doing internally? So there's a lot in that space. But it is exciting. Like, those are usually the people like on Instagram that I'm like, really excited to listen to, like these doctors, these women doctors that have hit menopause, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, whoa. And they're realizing, wow, we haven't been doing this really well. And now it's time. And now they're like getting loud and they're talking about it and things like this. So
when are typically women going? I know perimenopause starts as early as like 36,
37, 36. Yeah, it just really depends. Yeah.
And then menopause, what is the typical
national
age?
average? I think is 51, 52.
Okay.
But you know, it's very interesting because around that same time is also when the cardiovascular markers start to change. Like our rate of heart attack and stroke actually goes up exponentially around that time. And it's not, it's not a coincidence, because those hormones that we had circulating through the body were protective, cardioprotective, metabolic protective. So, when those start to go down, some of the cardiovascular markers are moving up, and we're starting to see more insulin resistance and things like that. And so that's why it is very important to come in early and make those changes, because we have a real opportunity to sort of transition us into menopause, but also healthier. And again, this is where like muscle mass comes in. It's metabolic. It's like we want to make sure that we have muscle because the energy, and the metabolic disorders and kind of the gaining weight and things like that, that is our body changing. And a lot of times we're carrying in the middle, which is now visceral fat. We don't want that, And so it's important for us to assess each patient and make sure that not only are we just, easing their symptoms of their hormonal symptoms, but that we're transitioning them to move into their 50s, 60s, 70s better off, protecting against other diseases.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I know that you are about to turn 50. Is that right?
I am going to be turning 48.
Oh, 48. Okay.
Yep.
So you're trending
like in there. Yeah.
Yeah. You were saying you wanted to be in the best shape of your life. That's like a goal of yours right now. What are you doing?
I work out a lot.
You do. Yeah.
I have a trainer, obviously I am trying to do all the things, as well, like everybody else, but definitely I needed to make sure, like the one area would be I'm too busy or I couldn't get into the gym or, I knew where my weak spot was.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can see it and you can identify it, you can fix it. Right. Mm-hmm. So I have a trainer. She comes to my house and I need that because what am I going to do? Sleep in? She would literally be knocking on my door saying like, yeah, okay, well, I'm glad you slept in. Now put your shorts and your shoes on and I'll be right down waiting for you.
Yeah.
I need that. And I love that. And, in the very beginning, it was like, oh, this is really hard. And now it's like, come hell or high water, nobody is going to do anything to impact my workout times.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy it now. And so that's definitely one of the things that I have had to make the top priority. I know that as we are aging, we're losing muscle mass, and that's so scary. And I just knew, I know that when we go into our older years, frailty is not our friend. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I also believe like you have to walk the walk. So that was like the one area that I knew I was like, you could do better, Harmony. You could do this better. And I was like, so what do I need to do? And I just don't love a gym.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love a gym.
I don't anymore. I feel like I did it one time. Not my thing anymore. I'm with you. I like the trainer. I like the accountability.
Yeah.
If that is an option for people, I do think that is a great route.
I had done like Pilates for a while and like even yoga, but then like, again, I didn't want the excuse of like, well, they don't have a class that fits my time, which that was a thing. Like when I was doing Pilates for a little while, it was like, I can't make that time. So now I'm like spending all this money and I'm like, man, I didn't get in there far near what I thought I was going to. So I'm like, okay, back it up. This is what it has to look like. So you have to just adjust. But obviously I love acupuncture and I love going under the red light or using the sound bed or getting my Reiki sessions and, I love all the things. So I just, yeah, I knew that was where the deficit was. So I doubled down on that, and it's been 2 years now, and now I have 2 more years to go. So hopefully I have some big biceps.
Yeah.
When I'm 50, you know.
But blending that, self-care of the more energy focused things and obviously strength training and eating right and, doing all that. I think there is a balance there that we all need to try and
absolutely
figure out. Yeah.
And that, like you had said, is figure it out, like figuring out what works and then making that work. So those are some of the questions, even, working with patients is like, if we're going to do this, how can we set you up to succeed? Like, I don't want to be the next person who does something with them that they failed at. And that's why we do start slow and personalized, because I'm a big fan of celebrating every win, like every win, probably ad nauseum for my patients. Right. So I want to make sure that like those things are being addressed steadily, even when it comes down to supplements. Like if I know that we get the reports back and it's like, okay, we could probably use, X, Y, and Z. And let's just say it's like very general things like a fish oil, a probiotic, a multivitamin, a B, something like that. Well, if I rip all of those things off, and those are kind of just like the basics in the functional medicine world, right? That's a lot for some people if they've not taken anything. So I'm like, okay, let's start with vitamin D because we saw that it was low. And maybe we do a multi. And maybe because we know that you're not getting enough protein in a day, we make that protein drink into more so like a medical food that we'll use, which has your multi in it already. So that way I know you're getting your protein. We can use it as a snack and then you're getting your multi. I finally found a fish oil that actually tastes really, really good, which I think it took almost like 18 years to find this.
Wow.
So I'm like, can you not swallow pills? Or can you swallow pills? And they're like, I can't swallow those horse pills. Perfect. I've got something for you, and so just literally addressing all those tiny little needs just sets you up for success.
Yeah. I feel like was there a part of you that feels that you were ever too hard on yourself? Because I feel like you really you understand that with the majority probably of the people that you see and women, we meet, that we're so hard on ourselves. Were you that way, or are you that way? Are you reformed? Have you reformed yourself?
So I practice in a way that I wanted to be treated when I was a patient. So like I tell my patients, like I've been on both sides of this table. And so like if somebody's on my bio and things like that, they'll know like I'm a cancer survivor. At 19 years old, I had lymphoma. I did a year of chemo, a year of radiation. 4 years later, I had a reoccurrence and I was pissed. Like they told me it wasn't going to come back. I did everything that those doctors said and it came back and I was pissed. And I'm 24 years old and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So they caught it early on an early screen, whereas in the beginning, it was not caught early at all. It was like a 3B. It was extremely advanced. And so I then I'm from Seattle originally, and we're all kind of tree huggery over there. So like I ended up going to Mexico and working with some doctors outside of the box, American doctors that were, doing things that just weren't able to be done in the States. And they told me I should go back and I should do a stem cell transplant. Again, I was upset. I don't want to go back to those doctors. I wanted them just to tell me to like, eat a head of broccoli. And ultimately that wasn't the case. I changed my diet. I took herbs. I did all these different things. And I went back and ultimately I did do a stem cell transplant. My stem cell transplant, I was supposed to be in the hospital for 2 months. I got out in 2 weeks. I cried because I didn't think it took, because I'm like, they told me I was going to be, and I'm not telling you it was roses and unicorns. It was definitely awful, but I was definitely out of the hospital in record time. They're like, oh, you're the poster child. You must be so lucky. And I'm like, actually, I'm like putting in the work. Yeah. Like I'm taking all these herbs, I'm changing my diet, I'm doing all the things. So I got to see what it was like to do that diagnosis with just Western. And then I also I got to see that with herbs and diet and all. And I had a counter the first go around. I had a counter for pain and something for poop and something for sleep and like everything. And the next time I didn't have any of those things. And I had an acupuncturist, and she was instrumental in where I am today and during that time. And I was good. Like, I was actually very good. I would go for treatments, and I was not nauseous. I was sleeping. I didn't have pain. I was pooping. I was all the things. And so what I do remember is that I remember going to an herbalist who was really, really smart. She like wrote this huge book on oncology and herbs. And I went to her, and she's like, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to take. And I was like, done. And so I got home and I started to take it. And it's like, it's legit your granules, like you're mixing it in water. It looks like mud, and then you're downing it. Well, every time I took it, I would puke violently. It like wouldn't get past the throat. You know what I mean? It was really bad. And I had to do 5 grams 4 times a day. And I literally couldn't do it. And I just remember my boyfriend at the time then, who, God bless him, was with me through that whole time, is now my husband. And we've been together for 25 years. So like, it's always really easy to say yes to somebody when they've been through like that with you. But I just remember him being like, you can't do this. Like, I can't watch you do this. And I felt like such a failure. I went to the top person who wrote the biggest book, who gave me the thing, right, that I asked for. And I physically cannot put it down my throat. And, you know, energetically, like, and I was doing nothing of this sort then, but like, I hated those herbs. I hated them so much. Like, what is that doing to my body? You know, like just having like that, and then shaming myself. I tried over and over and over, and I couldn't do it. I think about that all the time. And I think about that with my patients, and I don't shame them. And if you can't take it, we'll figure this out. And that's kind of the space I come at. And even from like how my practice is run, I just think if I was that person walking in, what would I want from this space? How would I want that front desk person to talk to me? How would I want my practitioner to come in? How would I want them to greet me? How would I want them to support me when something's not right or when something's great? I just think back, and honestly, like, I would tear up now, but like, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't see myself as that person. So I just want to be good for them, you know? And I was told along the way, if you take this garbage, it's not going to work. Like, your chemo won't work or your radiation won't work. Like, it was an uphill battle 20 years ago, you know, taking weird things and having your doctors like yell at you basically. And that's why, you know, working at Good Sam, I wanted to make sure I could speak the language. I didn't want that patient to go back to their doctor and be like, well, my acupuncturist has me on, you know, blah, 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 you know? And they'd be like, I don't know what that is. You can't take that. I'd be like, no. I have you on, you know, X, Y, and Z. And here's the research paper, you know, if we had to. And I didn't want them to have to experience what I experienced.
So helping them bridge the gap between the two.
Bridge the gap between their doctor, bridge the gap between, you know, the relationship that they're on in their own personal journey of what that struggle looks like. And yeah, I just, you know, yes, like, am I their acupuncture physician? Yes. But are we participants in this? Yes. Like, I just, you know, I tell everybody, I'm like, I'm your biggest cheerleader. So like.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. I'm going to throw something at you.
Oh God.
Because people know I like to ask people what their cinnamon effect is, but I'm really going to lean into this a little bit more. And I feel like you're the perfect first person to do it. So the Cinnamon Effect Manifesto is 5 C's. It is clarity, connection, creativity, confidence, and calm. So I want to know from you, that's what I think the cinnamon effect is like adding those things to life and making your life fuller, healthier, more fulfilling. So you don't have to give a ton of thought to the question. It's more like rapid fire.
Okay, let me drink some water here.
Okay. Sip of water. And I want to know, what is something you do to bring clarity to your life?
Okay, clarity would be breath work.
Breath work.
Definitely.
Connection. What do you do to bring connection, either self-connection or connection with others?
I love a good hangout session with friends.
Love it.
Yeah.
Creativity. You kind of did mention this a little earlier. What do you do to be creative? Or is there a thing that you like to do when you're feeling like you need to be creative?
Creativity. I definitely love to learn. So like I'm always trying to figure out what's the next thing that we're going to be doing. And I love to be creative in my practice. So I'm always like, is that creativity with like a new thing we're going to offer? Like what can I merge together? And kind of goes back to community. Like, who can I pull in to make something awesome? You know, like where's the secret sauce in this event or something like that. So creativity is usually like more ideas in my space.
Love it. Love it. What do you do to give yourself more confidence? Or when do you feel the most confident? Maybe that's a better question.
I will have to say, when I'm facilitating breath work, I have to feel confident. I'm like the style of breath work that I'm doing is kind of a kick in the tush. Because I like have to turn myself into like the female version of like Tony Robbins. And I'm like, we've all done harder things than lay on this floor and breathe. You know what I mean? Like,
I love it.
You know, like it's like really like the music is loud and I'm like very much into it. And it's intense. And I just remember going for my breathwork certification going like, this is going to be different. And of course I was nervous. So usually when I'm trying to get past that, I just am like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on the calendar. So when I go to actually complete my certification, it's already planned. Like there's people that are already signed up for it. You are doing this, Harmony.
Yeah.
There's no turning back. And so when I'm doing that, it almost just feels like alter ego like. I mean, you have to just step into your confidence. And it's really wonderful to even have patients go like, I've never seen that side of you before. And I'm like, I know, who knew that was in there? You know,
I love
so
that.
It's exciting.
That's very
I feel
cool.
like that's when I feel my most confident.
I love that. I love that. And then what do you do to make yourself when you are in need of calm, what do you do?
Yeah, meditation. Yeah, for sure. I have a hammock in my backyard. And then I just like look up and I just see the palm trees, you know, and I'm all just kicked back. And it's just good. And I love meditation. And when I need to get quiet, that's perfect. You know, it doesn't always happen in the backyard in the sunshine on the hammock. It's, you know, next to the bed or in one of the chairs in the office or something like that, or sometimes just with my dogs. But yeah, meditation is always like just like takes you right there for me anyways.
I love that. Harmony Brown, Reclaim Wellness. This was amazing.
I'm so happy you had me. So grateful to be here.
Oh, I'm so grateful you're here too. Will you shout out, how can everyone find you?
Yes.
Your website, social media.
Yeah. So I think probably Instagram is where I post everything first, like if it's events and things like that. So Instagram would be at Reclaim Wellness Now. And the website would be reclaimwellnessnow.com. And you can always just call the office. So that I have it down here, 561-336-3144. And that's how you can pretty much reach us.
Harmony Brown, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, such a pleasure.
We'll have to do it again. There's a lot more to talk about, I feel like.
Awesome.
We covered a lot of ground, though, I will say.
So. We went full circle, I'm pretty sure. So yeah. All right. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of The Cinnamon Effect. If you enjoyed our time together, don't forget to hit that follow button on your podcast app and sprinkle a little love by leaving us a 5-star rating and a quick review. Your support means the world to me. For even more goodness, check out the show notes where you'll find links to some of my favorite products. And don't forget to visit thecinnamoneffect.com to connect with me directly or to grab your TCE gratitude journal, your next step towards a more grateful life. I can't wait to spice things up with you again next time. Stay vibrant, stay inspired, inspired and remember to add a little cinnamon to your life every day.